This is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I'm here in Acapulco, Mexico, and I have Kal Molinet coming in from Richmond, Virginia. How are you, Kal?
I'm doing swell. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. I saw you recently on a video you did with Ben Lowry, who was a previous Anarchast guest, and I thought it was excellent. I think you are a great communicator of the anarchist ideals, of liberty ideals, and you're a great talker. But the first question I'm going to ask you is the same question I ask everyone: is how did you become an anarchist?
All right, right. Well, I guess all of us have been practicing anarchy for pretty much all our lives, right? Unless, if you don't use violence in your day-to-day life to solve problems, you're already an anarchist, whether you knew it or not. But I guess for me personally, it's more of a childhood sort of thing, kind of anti-authoritative, sort of. I never really liked being told what to do, right? As a kid, I never really liked the punishments that came with it, without my consent or choice. And as a child, you have to kind of run away, you have to scream, you have to hide, you have to cower, because you have no really any way to fight back, or you really have no say, right? Because even if you did, they'll say that don't talk back, right? You're being a my way, I guess, when I was a kid to kind of fight back when I was a kid was really just to give my father the silent treatment. So like. He would do something I didn't like, and I, kind of force as punishment to do what it is that is required of me. And of course, when dinner time came around, he'll say, "Okay, here you go. Here's our Chef Boyardee can in a bowl, whatever, and eat." And I wouldn't say anything. I just stand there. And then of course, he wants to play the game. So 2 o'clock in the morning, hours later, he comes downstairs. I'm still standing there, haven't said anything to him, and that will go on for days. And I guess that was my own way to, I guess, ostracize my own father when I was a child. So I don't know. I guess anyone who kind of rebels against something they feel unjust is, in a way, an anarchist themselves.
That's an interesting way to put it. I never thought of it that way. And so you started very young with your. That's great.
I didn't say that I was an anarchist, a true anarchist, until maybe a few years ago, though. I was always on the, I was always still anti-authoritative, I was always kind of still anti-statist, but again, it wasn't until I moved to Richmond where that kind of whole thing changed my views. Meeting really nice people, meeting a lot of kind, warm, loving, gentle-hearted people that kind of changed my mind in the way how I used to view people. Like, instead of seeing the worst in people, I see only now really the best. And then after that, trying to find more philosophy on this sort of subject. I've always been interested in philosophy. I've always been interested in reading about these sort of things. I was more, I guess, following Kantian ethics before it came Stefan Molyneux's universally preferable behavior, which kind of changed my whole argument about it all. And it just happens to be the most righteous, the most morally good argument to use. To show that there is such thing as universal morality, there is such thing as universal values, that we all have them, and you'll find, even talking to strangers about these sort of things, you'll find there's really not much difference, not much strangers between you and them, you and that person, between you and your community.
Yeah, I agree. I learned that through traveling the entire world. If you listen to the news or you listen to the government, and that's basically one and the same right now, they'll tell you that it's a scary world, there's a lot of bad people out there, but everywhere I went, everyone is very similar. They really want the same sort of things. They want freedom, even though some of them don't even understand what that really is, but they don't want to be enslaved. They want just to be with their friends and family and enjoy their lives. And yeah, it's really interesting to hear your perspective on that. So before you moved to Richmond, why were you so negative on people? Was there any particular events that happened?
Violence, really. Society, culture. Grew up in a life of violence myself, so that kind of background sets you up to already start viewing the rest of the world as conniving, twisted, arm shoulder length kind of people that you think everyone's kind of like that. And of course, joining the military really kind of exacerbated that kind of feeling, because then they teach you that anyone could be, potential terrorist. I did law enforcement and security, so it's even more heavily on those kinds of group of people that they teach this to. And, I understand the whole mentality behind that, and just kind of perhaps made it go a little bit more extreme. Well, again, for a long time. I guess kind of slowly kind of waning. I guess I had my own Raskolnikov movement, realizing the truth of it all, that, that this whole thing about thinking that people are naturally inherently violent. I was wrong. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about people, I guess. I was misled, right? We're all misled. We're all born with Social Security tax at the end of our feet. So when we're born in hospitals, we're all born into the matrix. We're all born into this idea that violence is going to set us free. And I was misled too when I joined the military, thinking I was defending our freedoms, when really in reality the situation is we keep losing more and more freedoms, so government keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I guess my way, that realization for me, to actually do something real about defending these freedoms. I thought I was doing all those years in the military. To actually do something about that. This is what Liberate RVA is really all about. But anyone can Liberate RVA. I'm not the only leader. Anyone who values the non-aggression principle can speak for this movement. Is a leader in this movement. What we need today are role models, people who follow by example, right? Not politicians, not people who forces people to follow them, people who bribes people to follow them. Those sort of things, those sort of moral integrity, and I believe all of us have that. I believe my whole community can be just as virtuous, right? Unlike what Plato said in the past, that the people can be virtuous, only one person can, and that must be the philosopher king. And kind of started this whole mess about tyrants and rulers. And so I guess that's kind of why I grew up that way, thinking that way. I mean, every kid in Bolivia wants to be president. Every kid in Bolivia that grows up wants to be president of Bolivia someday. My cousins, my brother David, pretty much every single other person I've met from Bolivia has that sort of mentality. But at the same time, it's not so much for prestige or anything like that. It's really an economic reason behind that, because it's there's a lot of poor people in Bolivia, and you see these people who get into offices who never get reelected. The first year they spend all the money on projects, and then the next 3 years the money kind of siphons and disappears and goes away, and they know they're never going to be reelected. So it's a way to get rich. It's a quick get-rich scheme. I mean, they even have it here in the United States, right? Insider trading. You only have to be like a congressman for 2 years, and you have like medical care for life. You can write books about it. You can go for speaking engagement tours for like $750,000 for like working 8 years as president. You don't really need that much qualifications like Obama, right, to be such up high in that sort of position, that hierarchy, to have that kind of power. And so when he's done, he's going to do his tour and he's going to give his speaking engagement. It's a really, really good quick get-rich scheme. When you look about it, I guess, in a way, through poverty, through looking at a way to succeed in this world. I mean, he doesn't have to try anymore, right? First few weeks, already got the Nobel Prize, right? For going to work, for trying to have peace. I think that's why he got the Nobel Prize. I mean, if that's the standard that the Nobel Prize is having, then, everyone should kind of have their own Nobel Peace Prize for just showing up to work and trying.
Well, he's not even just trying, he's actually killing people every day.
Right, and that's the reality of the situations. I mean, that's the reality of the situation of all presidents. This popularity contest, it's killing people. Yeah, it's no different than, the small shootings out in the Midwest, and him authorizing kill orders for anyone who is at least 18 years of old, who looks like they're a teenager and they're male and they're in the vicinity of those predator drone attacks. Hey, fair game. assassinations of U.S. citizens. I think it's like the only law, so to speak, in the Constitution that's kind of spells out what the consequences. Two eyewitnesses, court-martial sort of thing for any U.S. citizen to be a traitor, and he just completely, goes over that, right? Somebody says it was a constitutional scholar, kind of about, some of these, like really the only law that has the punishment, or at least like the way the trial should be handed out. For him, it's just a push of a button, murdered, dead, wiped his hand clean.
Yeah, it really amazes me how so many people, it's not just Bolivia, it's everywhere in the world, they look up to people like government and presidents. Many mothers always say, one day perhaps my son will become president or my daughter will become president. Why would you want that? That's a criminal activity where you murder people and steal from people, and it just sort of shows how a lot of the society is kind of warped in this way that they don't really see government for what it is. It's just a gun, and a lot of the propaganda helps. They've 12 years of government indoctrination. Vladimir Lenin said that if you give me your child for 4 years, the seed I plant will never be uprooted. And now they have 12 years, and they go for another 4 years in colleges where the professors are often very socialist, almost communist, and very pro-state, pro-government, because that's where a lot of them get paid from. It's just terrible in that sense. But I know from listening to your interview with Ben Lowry that you're quite optimistic about the future. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? What do you see happening in the next few years? Do you think we're going to head towards more freedom, or are we going to head towards more slavery?
I think there's, I know there's time to still turn it back. There's still time to save our country, to save our community, to save our family and friends, our businesses, right? Our livelihoods. Before what's happening right now in Europe reaches our shores, there's still time to turn it against it, to turn back the tide. I see less than a year from now, there's going to be 50 other Liberate movements all across the country, maybe in other parts of the world. Right now I'm talking to other people setting up other liberation movements in other communities. There's Eric Holster in Newcastle, Delaware, who's doing videos. He's out there doing his, spreading the movement out there, liberating his community with his friends, with other people out there together right now. There's Javier up in Liberate Rochester, New York, doing the same thing. A real freedom movement for anarchism, not this whole cover your face with bandanas and smash the state sort of stuff, not this whole Emma Goldman sort of stuff. I mean, they've had their chance to use knives. They've had their chance to use bomb plots and assassination attempts, and where has it got them? Right? It only they're playing right into the 1984 handbook. Right? The government wants to know who wants to initiate that violence so they can end it. It's just you just target yourself for the government to get rid of you. It's like Theodore Roosevelt did with the Immigration Act. This is another way for him to get rid of anarchists. I think it's time for something new. It's time for something different, something that's never been tried before, and to just go all the way with the non-aggression principle. Go all the way with non-violence. Go all the way from just turning away from the state and turning to yourself. Turning to your friends, turning to your family, turning to your community. Right? Believe in, let go of the state, let go of voting, let go of violence, and hold on to your friends and family. Hold on to your community. Hold on to those handshakes. But down to violence. I don't use violence in my day-to-day life to solve problems. Right? How is voting any different? How is the state any different? The state knows how to solve problems the one way, and that's violence. Versus the plurality of non-violent solutions we already use in our day-to-day lives. And I feel the best way to do that is just to unite as a community. I mean, you see what's happening with Chick-fil-A right now. We have like mayors saying, I will make sure that Chick-fil-A does not come in my town. But you really don't have to wait for one man to do that. You really don't need a politician, a mayor, a congressman, or even a president to act on your behalf, because you can act on your own behalf, right? You can say yourself and make your own public declaration that says, I will not support bigotry. I will not support racism. I will not support homophobia. You can do that on your own. And if you have a lot of people in your community who shares these values for nonviolence, who shares these values, these community values for freedom, for equality, a whole community do that on their own. And you don't need laws, you don't need the police, you don't need the state to do that. Ostracism is our most powerful weapon against anyone who wants to use violence against any member in our community. Because if anyone who wants to use it, because you have to remember, right? If you're socially ostracized, where are you going to go? No one's going to house you, feed you, clothe you, interact with you. They'll unsubscribe. They'll delete you from their Facebook friends. They'll stop inviting you to their events. If they're still on MySpace, they'll kick you out. No one will interact or talk to you or even smile at you. Right? There's nowhere else for you to go. That's our most powerful weapon. The community of our freedom of interaction, freedom of association. We don't need laws to do that on our behalf, to force everyone to agree. We can do that on our own. You can have a society of people who agree with it. You can have all kinds of society with others. So you can have a society of people who want to run around naked. You can have a society of people who just want to smoke pot. You can have another small community that just doesn't want to smoke pot. You can have all these communities. All of this can coexist together. You can't, but you won't be able to force like your idea on everyone in one community who doesn't agree with it. Right? You can have a red light district community. You can have whatever you want as long as it doesn't infringe on other people on their property. Right? Property rights begins owning their body. It begins with not forcing people, using force, using violence instead of persuasion, instead of talking, instead of reason, instead of compassion, patience, and understanding. So where do I see this going? I know it's going to happen. I know it won't be long before all of us will celebrate Victory Day. And then it doesn't end here, right? Once we liberate our communities. Then there's Canada, then there's Mexico, then there's Bolivia, there's the rest of the world, right? We want to change the world. We want to end all this violence. Like change starts at home. Change starts with believing in yourself. Change starts in believing in your friends and your family and your community. And all together, you draw that moral line in the ground and you say, enough is enough. Violence ends with me. And can you say the same? And all in that line will stretch out and connect to all of the other communities. It's already stretching out to Delaware from Richmond. It's already stretching out to New York and Rochester. It's already stretching out in other places around the country already. There's other liberation movements that we're setting up right now and talking to them and setting up their own, liberate their own community freedom movements. I came across this YouTube video a while ago. It was a YouTube video of ants, of fire ants, and they're all on this top of this water. You know, a single ant will eventually drown on its own, but if you have a collective of ants together, they kind of ball up and they hold on to each other. They have pockets of air, they all can breathe, and they can survive that turmoil of water as they're floating on top of it. None of them drown. There's an experiment where somebody has like this pen or this metallic device, and he's trying to push this ball of ants underneath the water, but the buoyancy and all the ants holding on to each other, it doesn't let it happen, doesn't occur. It just goes into the water, dips a little bit, and just goes right back up. Some ants actually try to crawl on top of the instrument. But that's what I mean by this. You know, if we all hold on together, if we all stick together, if we all value, if all of us value the non-aggression principle, nothing can stop us. Nothing can stop a society, a community of people who believe in peace, who believe in each other, who believe in their own community. Much pressure people want to say. There's always a naysayer in every community. I guess that's where I see this going. That's where I see this freedom movement heading in that direction. All across the world. We're already doing it in our day-to-day lives. We're already doing it to Chile. There's no reason why we can't do it to other entities, right? Other people. People who don't value equality. People who don't value the non-aggression principle. We have this non-violence. Let go of our ring. To do something that George Washington couldn't do himself. To let go of that ring of power, right? Even in the end, you know, the most righteous person, you know, Frodo couldn't let go of the ring. He couldn't let go of the ring. And it's to let go of violence is to let go of that power. To let go of voting is to let go of that power. To let go of the state is to let go of that power. But believing in yourself, you know, gives you more power than that. That's this illusion. You know, you can't show me the state. You'll show me a white building. You can't, you know, you'll show me people holding guns in green costumes. I used to be one of them. but there's no real power there. But there is power in the community. There is power in social ostracism. There is power in nonviolence. Our voice is our greatest weapon to combat evil, to combat violence. You have, not this whole thing where like every 4 years, you're like, well, if you don't vote, you don't have. I said, what piece of paper is not my voice? Right? Gun can't inspire people. Gun can only keep people in fear. But the moment you lose sight of them, everybody runs and scampers. But your voice, you can inspire people. You can unite a community. You can unite your own community. You can unite people together. You can unite them against this. You can unite them against Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's a great message. I've been thinking a lot about that myself lately. I've been thinking about how the state is constantly, I agree with you, the state doesn't really exist, but the people who believe in the state are constantly aggressing against us, constantly stealing from us, constantly doing violence. And what do we, as people who believe in freedom, who believe in non-aggression, in the non-initiation of force, what do we do? And for the most part, we don't react violently. We don't punch a cop in the face every day. We try as hard as we possibly can to be non-violent. And I think that's a really great thing about what our ideology is, what we believe is. You could push us so far and we still won't react violently. That's how much we believe in nonviolence. And I've actually been looking into Gandhi a bit recently, and most of the things he was talking about were very anarchist, very libertarian, freedom-minded concepts. And he changed his world through thought and through nonviolence, and I think that's really important. And I think that you're totally right. It's about ideas at this point. If we want to get across the point that we want to end violence, then we can't participate in violence, and we can win this war, I believe, through thought. And thanks to the internet, we really have a chance to do that. And I know what you're doing with your Liberate movement is really great, and this wouldn't be possible without the internet. So we've really got an opportunity here to really spread this message and really make a change in our world for the better. Could you tell people about your Liberate movement? Do you have a website, or how can they get more info?
www.liberaterva.com. RVA is short for Richmond, Virginia. On there you'll find everything. It's really a template for other people who want to set up their own freedom movements. You just copy and paste and you just change the name. We have a freedom petition there, right? If there's other ways to participate in this, if speaking is not your thing, we need wordsmiths too. We need comedians, entertainers. We need there's other ways to participate. We have the freedom petition you can sign, and there's a list, right, where you can sign your name to show the world that you have the courage, or you have the integrity to stand up for what's right, to stand up against all this violence. There's other ways to participate in this movement. Unlike what the government says, you don't vote, you don't care, sort of stuff. Like, well, actually, here's a list of people who do care about freedom. Here's a list of people who know that violence will never set us free. Here's a list of people who have that courage and that integrity to stand up for what's right. And there's a list of, I think right now, 90 people who've signed it from all over the country, from Missouri to California, New York, Delaware. So on the website, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of information. Right now, I'm in the middle of making a Liberate RVA show myself. Anyone in my community here who has anything and everything they want to say about freedom, come on the show, and this is a way to help get their message out there. So anyone can participate, right? Anyone who values the non-aggression principle can participate in this show. So there's a lot of ongoing projects that we've been doing. We just did our freedom gathering last week, the Bomb in the Brain series. That was a good way to kind of start off talking about this violence, and by doing like an educational thing, and then having an after party afterwards. Two guys from Iraq showed up. This guy from this Obama campaign when we were at Glen Allen, he showed up too. So this kind of reaches a lot of people in here, right? When you talk to people, you have to realize you don't have to convince them, right? If it takes 20 minutes and they still don't get it, you don't have to convince them. You can say, hey, listen, we're having an event next week. If you still have more questions, why don't you come over, right? Still invite the questions. Still invite them out of curiosity to solve these questions, right? Because eventually they're going to stop asking questions out of fear and just out of curiosity, right? And that's where we want them to be. That's where we want people to be. Ask about the roads. We got these answers, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. All this stuff is out there. But I mean, if you have extra metaphors, other ways, go for it, right? But that's where we want to get people at, right in that area where they ask about these questions. These answer those questions are the easiest way, I guess. Once they cross that threshold, instead of feeling like we're there to attack them or put them down or insult them or mock them, sort of thing. And of course, they're going to hold on to their beliefs, and then eventually, it's not just so much. It's no longer a discussion. It's an argument. That's the main reason why we're not protesters. Protesters implies concessions, deals. It implies compromise, right? And there's no compromising in and this consistency of nonviolence. There's no compromise for violence. So what we do is just a discussion. We just talk about freedom. That's all we do. We're just freedom activists in our community, and we just go around and just talk to people about freedom. It's not politics. Anarchism is not a political position. No more that atheism is a religious belief. So that's really all we do. That's really, the first rule of Liberate RVA is talk about freedom. The second rule is talk about freedom. And that's really all there is to it for Liberate RVA. That's really all we do. Just talk to people, spread the message, plant the seeds of freedom in the community.
That's fantastic. You're a very inspirational speaker, and I wish you all the best with what you're doing there. And anyone who lives in that area, definitely check out Kal's site. Sounds like he's doing some great things and spreading the word of freedom. So thank you very much for being on the show with us today, Kal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. Cuídate.
You too. All right. Cuídate también. And that's another episode of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.